And so that is the most attractive thing to any hospital. I mean, I haven't heard anyone say anything more compelling. And guess what causes almost all the problems we have in all downstream health? It's low grade and high grade addiction.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another show. Heads Up Advisor here. John Sbrocco. Got a great one for you today. My good friend Lee Lewis from the Health Transformation Alliance. Going to be talking about some things that you may question at home. Why do bigger groups do certain things versus smaller groups? It makes sense. Why would they do that? A lot of what we're going to talk about today is what the bigger groups are looking at, why they do certain things, why maybe it works in the smaller market, why it doesn't, and what's coming down the pike for you. Great influence on the market. Really needs no introduction. Lee Lewis, Health Transformation Alliance, Chief Strategy Office. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much, Sean. So excited to be here.
Great. We just wrapped up with you at the event. Had some great topics discussed. Everybody's chasing you on the way out. Hey, tell me more about this. Tell me more about that. And you get the inside, baseball on all of this cool stuff because they're chasing your members. You got about 6.5 million lives over there?
Yes, sir. 6.5 million lives, 80 employers. I don't know. A fourth of the Fortune 200.
Why are these larger groups they're still using the big 3 PBMs. They're still using the carrier ASOs. Lee, that's not the right place to be, and yet they still do it. Why?
Here's the reason. They pay consultants hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes over $1 million a year, just to do consulting on their pharmacy benefit. And those consultants always recommend the big 3. And so it puts benefits teams in a very interesting position where do they follow the advice that they've paid $1 million to receive, or do they buck that advice and go their own way? And that keeps large employers locked into that cycle.
When we're implementing something on a 200 life group versus a 20,000 life group, there's a lot more going on. What are the challenges that they run into that prohibit them from that?
Some strategies you need major assets to be able to do. You need purchasing power and size. Others, you need agility. You need to be small and quick. And if you're able to operate really efficiently, you can pursue different innovations. And so when you're in more of the mid-market and you're looking upstream, you're like, wow, what are the things that they're doing that are unique? Those asset-based strategies come down to making carriers do things that behave more like a TPA so that a larger employer may have a slightly lower need to move to an independent TPA. Nevertheless, many of them quickly outstrip, the restrictions there, and then start to ask the question, well, what are the restrictions that keep them from moving to a TPA? When I started working at the HTA, none of the employers used a TPA at all. And today about 10% of our members do. And some of them are big Fortune 100 companies. And they have and are using independent TPAs. Things that you didn't have to worry about before, like your IBNR doubling, issues with the sophistication around the technology of answering calls and call volume. Some TPAs don't have all of that figured out quite as much as a big national carrier. Certain areas of data sophistication around interoperability with admissions, discharges, and transfers out of the hospital systems that go into the clinical programs, or the ability to monitor certain types of clinical issues. Some of these areas we take for granted when we have a big national carrier. And when you switch to a TPA, you're going to lose some sophistication in those areas. And so there's a trade. The grass is greener. You're going to have so much better control over your finances. You're going to have better outcomes in the accuracy of the claims. You're going to have more flexibility. You're going to future-proof your strategy. The grass is greener, but you do have to weed.
Is there a way to pilot programs, and are employers piloting in certain divisions? Does that make sense, or they don't even look at that as an appetite to implement?
No. You're exactly right. Maybe 20% of our employers are using a Surest, on a pilot basis from UHC, or they're using Simple Pay or Coop Health on a pilot basis or a side-by-side basis. And others, Exo Health, Centivo, et cetera. So yeah, they're pretty good about piloting innovative items, but they're not always going to do it as a full replacement.
We talked at the event about new items coming down the pike, right? You look at the Walmarts they're doing these things. Tom had them, Emmerich pushing the envelope how many years ago? Employers right now that are in the large group space, ones that get it, ones that are doing great things, what are you seeing that they're doing that's really working? And I'm talking about moving the needle. We're not talking about, just it looks good and smells good. What's actually working?
Basically, every employer within the HCA is supplementing their network in one way or another. A is advanced primary care. So looking at direct primary care networks, regional networks, Amazon One Medical across the country, Marathon Health. There's lots of these vendors, and they are they're aggregating in and making these direct primary care, advanced primary care practices that do not take insurance. They are supplementing with direct contracts and bringing them in so that they are covered under their health plan. So that's the first supplemental wave.
Now, when you say direct primary care, it's hot. Everybody talks about it, but are we talking about just stepping in? You talk about employer change, but some of these programs say, hey, we're going to implement direct primary care, charge everybody X amount per month, and everybody's got to go to this doctor. Change your doctor. Is that what we're talking about, or is this a different model that is more advanced?
Good question. And I'm going to be very unpopular with what I'm about to say. There are 3 models of using direct primary care. So the first thing everyone will say is, hey, bring me all 500 of your lives, and I'm going to take care of all of them. And you're going to pay me, fixed rate, whatever, 10, 20 bucks per person to take care of the whole population. We say, okay, we call that a radius model, right? Everybody that's like anywhere in the vicinity of the DPC. That's the first model. And I don't like that model. And as a Homo sapien, if you are paying me to not do work, I am not going to do work. So if you are being paid already, and every DPC is going to take issue with this, they're going to say, come on, Lee, you're a big jerk. I'm doing great work. I'm like, I realize you are doing good work. Nevertheless, I think you should be paid for doing that work. And for some portion of that population, none of them have ever met you. And I don't think that you should be paid on that part of the population.
I think it was a good concept, but then it became sort of a money grab when I started seeing so many people jump into it. I said, what's going on here? There's a lot of money here.
I totally agree. Okay. So I scrapped the radius model. And then I said, what's the alternative? And it was like, oh, when people sign up, you only pay when people sign up. And I'm like, okay, that's great. So we jumped into the sign up model. And then, I doubled up what I was paying, right? And so instead of 10 or 20 for everybody, I'll pay 20 or 40 for the signups. That's great. And so then we started working on it. And then we started seeing all these people sign up. It's great. And we saw some movement in our claims. And then it's like, wait a minute, why aren't we getting more? So we dug a little deeper, and I realized half the people who signed up never showed up. And then we discovered a third model, which is the show up model. I don't care about radius. I don't even care about signups. I care about show ups. If you are actually taking care of a patient, I will pay you. They said, well, Lee, we got to charge more for that. You can charge me more, but I'm only paying when people actually use it. And now we've right-sized the model. It's awesome. The DPCs don't love it, but they acknowledge that it's fair because no employer, all my employers who have done DPC, I have a bunch of employers who tried DPC in other areas. And they're like, Lee, I don't want to hear about it. Like, it sucks because we end up paying all this money for people who never use the product.
Yeah, it's hard to measure outcomes too. I know the touted outcomes, but it's extremely difficult to measure that outcome when, hey, there's a certain population that are unhealthy that should be seeing the doctor. And those are the ones we need to control because 1% of members are driving 40% of claims. That's what we're trying to get to.
Yes. And what we do see is that my thought was, people who already have a doctor and are using it, they're not even going to be a good candidate for this. This program is for people who don't have a doctor yet, right? Also, we don't make anybody switch doctors. So you did bring up that also. It's like, if I'm paying on the whole population, I'm going to be like pushing people to switch docs. Like, get out of that racket. No. I just encourage people to have a better experience. And if we deliver better, people will opt in. They'll take it. Nobody likes their fee-for-service doc. And so if you offer them something better, people will take it. You don't have to cajole them. Offer them an incentive to use direct primary care or any primary care.
You just talk about going there and parking. We're in a virtual world. Everyone wants virtual. How much of that is the ability to do it virtually versus going in? Because that, I think, is a game changer alone.
We see that our people will go and see their doctor 1 or 2 times a year. That's normal. They'll do virtual 2 or 3 times a year, and then they will text 80 times a year. They're texting all the time. Once you have access to a doctor who you trust and who has a relationship with you, the core way that you're getting help is through text, and then you escalate as needed.
And so now we're identifying these members through the DPC programs, and then you're shifting them over to the other programs you have in place, like direct contracting, because we've seen, what is it? The number, I think is like up 25% in the last 4 years, orthopedic surgeries, because it's just climbing as a claim right now.
Unit costs are going nutty. Infusions are a bonanza. My big joke is that talking to a hospital CFO about infusion therapies is like talking to a 23-year-old single male about crypto. Like, they get very excited about it. So infusion's so hot right now, right? So it's been, I think according to JAMA, they've like 80% of compensation right now with oncologists is coming in through drug markups. The hospitals are using it as a recurring way to add facility charges. If you're waiting for someone to need surgery, it's like a one and done. There's no annuity there. You're just waiting for bad things to happen, and then people come in and you fix them. If only there was a way to get an annuity stream, fusion therapies, because that patient has MS. They're not going to be cured anytime soon. And to treat it, you need regular, recurring, ongoing infusions. And so that is the most attractive thing to any hospital. I mean, I haven't heard anyone say anything more compelling. And that is, if I can get a bunch of patients who have these lifelong illnesses where they've got to come back into the hospital every month, that's streaming revenue. It's forever. It is a subscription basis, so they can charge facility fees on it. They can do service fees, so the infusion itself, that's a second revenue channel. And then the third is I can take the drug, buy it for $1,000 and charge the plan $12,000 for it, if you're a hospital executive and you've got infusion. So what do you have to do as a prudent employer? Man, we've got to get control over that. No more facility fees on ongoing, routine, scheduled infusions. No mas. You should not be paying facility fees on any of that. You don't want to be paying outrageous service fees. You need a medical assistant or a nurse practitioner or licensed nurse, nursing assistant, etc. You have an individual who just administers the infusion, and then you buy the drug itself. You shouldn't be paying a 10x markup on that drug. Cap what you pay on that drug itself. They should not be marking it up like crazy. And that's how an employer gets control over it. I don't know. I'd say more than half of all the Fortune 100, Fortune 200 in the co-op are looking at this and looking to get control on this.
Now, are they blocking J codes in the PPO networks? I know we're able to do that in some of our groups with a TPA, but I think that's really where you have to catch it.
Everything. So here's the strategies from easiest to hardest. And easiest will save you money, but not all the money. Hardest gets all the savings, but it's harder. Okay. So easiest, you put in a site of care restriction. You say, look, on regular scheduled safe infusions, we don't cover it inside hospital systems. Inpatient, outpatient, no. We do dedicated infusion centers and home infusion. That's it. So you put that hard cap in your plan design. That takes care of your facility fees, or most of them. Second thing is we get a list of the J codes that are being abused, and we put a cap on those for the allowed amount. No mas. We're not going to pay above these caps. And people say, oh, well, Lee, like they're going to balance bill you. Actually, no, they're not. They're smart. They're not. Why? You don't want to chase away a subscriber. You're out if you chase those people away. They're going to be a revenue stream for the next 40 years. Do you want to put a risk on that, on getting an extra $2,000 in January of 26?
Makes sense.
So they're not going to balance bill these people. You can put a responsible cap in place, and by and large, it's going to be quiet as a mouse. They're going to wait you out. They want that patient for 40 years. Your plan is that you're going to go focus on something else. They'll switch employers.
It's like the copay cards. Yeah, we'll waive your copay on these drugs. No
We'll
problem.
waive it for a little while. That's right. We're just waiting you out. Even with not getting 10x markup on the drug, but you're getting a 1.2 markup or whatever, 20%, they don't care that they're still making great money on it. They're not going to chase you away. So you can flip it from the medical plan over the PBM. You were just mentioning that. Call it white bagging, sometimes brown bagging, but we're going to buy those drugs through the PBM channel, and then we're just going to provide the drug. We're not going to have you doing otherwise is like the world's worst movie theater. We're going to stick with the analogy, is where you go in and you're paying $12 for a bag of M&Ms. Like, that's the worst. If you can bring your own M&Ms, yeah, you feel a little, shady for doing that. You're probably not going to do that on a date. But if you've been married a few years, I'll bring.
We used to sneak McDonald's into the movie theater.
I'm going to pocket my own M&Ms. Thank you very much. I'm not going to buy it at the theater. And that's exactly what we're doing with these. Is We can buy it through the PBM, same drug for 90% less, and we send it over to the hospital or we send it with the patient and you can lower it. So those are some things you can do that don't even require a vendor at all. You can do that today.
We talk about cancer, but also there's big impacts post-COVID. You talked about some new care therapies. I actually spoke to your contact versus SSRIs, all these things for mental health that are affecting people that are just kind of spiraling over into more and more conditions. What do you got that's happening in the market that's being brought to the table?
This is probably the most exciting stuff in medicine. There's a lot of exciting stuff in medicine. This may be the most exciting. So you're exactly right. Post-COVID, I think mental behavioral health claims are up something like 80%. It's the highest trend that is, period. It may not hit your highest dollars because it's not always high dollar if you're doing a lot more therapy, et cetera. But many of your high dollar claims are certainly falling into that area, especially around mental health rehab and inpatient. The thing that's exciting, though, is that we finally have an FDA who's taken a look at psychedelic therapies. Many of these have been sort of banned as drugs for a long time, but when they are consumed, which is kind of crazy because we have every other bad drug you can take as a good drug, right? Meth, meth is everywhere. It's for ADHD, right? You know, any of these can have a version. Obviously, heroin through opioids. Every single bad drug has a good version, except psychedelics. Like, why do we think heroin is better than MDMA?
They've put it under another brand and name, and psychedelics just sound scary and nobody knows.
It's the last one that's getting looked at. So now they're looking at it. Turns out the good version of all these drugs is amazing because it actually can help reset your addiction triggers. And guess what causes almost all the problems we have in all downstream health? It's low grade and high grade addiction. It's alcoholism on the more extreme end or other drugs. And on the low extreme end, it might be peanut M&Ms.
The addiction level in today's world is crazy, regardless of what it is.
Absolutely crazy. And if we want to reset those, you have to break tight chemical connections that are in the brain. Well, what can you do to kind of shake up and start to loosen up and break up those tight addictive connections? Turns out psychedelic drugs are exceptionally good at that, maybe better than any other thing that they're good at. They help you to break up some of those addictive chains, and you can unlock people. It's fascinating. One of the most interesting ones is called ibogaine, and it's sort of like a peyote. It's a plant that's derived out of Africa, and it's the bunker buster of fentanyl. People can take one treatment on that, and I think it's upwards of half the patients are able to get off of a fentanyl heroin addiction. It's unbelievable.
If anybody that know Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort, Leonardo DiCaprio's movie, that's how he broke that addiction. He went and got to Mexico for ibogaine treatment. That's actually how he...
Oh, I didn't even know that. That's amazing.
Yeah. Now, ibogaine is the more extreme one. The heroin one, the PTSD one, and then there's a lighter versions, which I'm sure you're going to talk about, the ketamine one.
Yeah, ketamine, amazing. So the research coming out of Langone, there's a lot. Like every year, there's a new study on this because it's so good you can't not publish it. They're getting people who have alcoholism, and with a couple of days of therapy and maybe less than $10,000, they are getting sobriety. 70% effective sobriety a year later. You can spend a month in rehab and not even be a third that good, and at 50,000 plus instead of 7 or 8.
And the reason why we shouldn't say know about them or they're not brought out to the attention of actually working is because there's not that much money in it, and you're taking away alcohol rehab centers, which I just got finished watching the movie Body Brokers. It was like $350,000 a clip.
Yeah, the Florida Shuffle.
What a movie to watch if you haven't seen it. But yeah, I mean, it's like getting drugs from Canada. It's bad because they lose revenue. And so they control the narrative. But the ketamine thing is picking up steam. It's interesting to see. I'm debating on trying it. I get hit with more ads than I could think of. But out in Miami here, we've got these ketamine IV therapy treatment centers, and it's becoming very popular, and it's really interesting stuff on it that even my clients have asked me about it that are up in Philly where there's a drug epidemic so they know about it. And he brought it up.
I love these therapies. They're becoming more and more accepted. And the leading employers are supplementing their national network with a network of ketamine clinics that are practicing the most advanced therapies, that are using. One other little thing is the pharma gets bent out of shape on these drugs because it's hard to make money on them, because they've all been available for 50, 60 years. They're very generically available. Yeah. Ketamine costs $1. Somebody got very clever and said, hey, what if we did like a reverse generic, where we took a generic and then made it brand again, just for reasons, and then we can charge a ton of money on it. And that's exactly what they did with ketamine. They took $1 ketamine, made another generic version of it, called it S-ketamine, and now they charge $4,000 for it instead of $1. They put that on the market, and then they put a lot of marketing behind it. Nobody's marketing the dollar ketamine, and now there's millions and millions of dollars marketing the $4,000 generic equivalent of the ketamine. And so, as plan sponsors, we got to be looking out on that. These are the upcoming therapies. They're very exciting. Like, drug rehab is a thing of the past. You just don't do it. You're able to do a mental health therapy through one of the psychedelics and get better results in a day.
Correct me if you think I'm wrong. Here in Miami, you get hit with a lot of ads, and you're starting to see with, I think the ACA maximum out of pocket went up to like 10,100 or something this year. I'm getting hit with ads now that's it for x-rays, for MRIs, where they're like, look, we'll do your x-ray MRI, it's $500. So they're basically facilities that are opening up, just going after cash because the deductibles and co-insurances are so high that I think we're going to start seeing some movement where, instead of saying, hey, my doctor, this person has to be in network, you've got people running ads that have these clinics. So it's going to drive the force of this type of care because it's cash based now because deductibles are so high.
You got it. This is the classic example of the devil overplaying its hand. If you raise your prices too crazy, employers can't keep up with it. So they raise deductibles real high. Then nobody can keep up with it. And then it opens up a cash market to be able to operate below the level of an extreme deductible. You see DPC as a response to this. I'm excited about the clinics that are offering ketamine in other areas. A lot of that is just we haven't figured out how to pay it through claims yet, and there's not a lot of marketing dollars pushing it, so it gets kind of lost out, which is why you need to supplement with another, with a supplemental behavioral health network. And then with surgery centers and others like that, there's more and more that are getting in to where they can offer cash-based, all-inclusive pricing, where they know that for a lot of people, that surgery is just always going to be below deductible because the deductibles have gotten so high, and so they're finding ways to do it. That actually is a nice green shoot, I think, across the industry, even though it doesn't directly impact us necessarily at the large employer kind of health plan level.
We've got some great surgical centers, out there. We got Wellbridge out in Indy doing some great things. Cowboy out there, I like to call them. But you got to get those people that are willing to push the envelope. What keeps us from running into the control of these centers? Because that's what you're seeing more and more of. How are you getting them to break off, or what strategy maybe you're using in those situations? Because now so many of them are owned by the facilities.
Sort of the C and the ABC of supplementing is getting centers of excellence. You mentioned Tom Emmerich earlier on. He created a whole centers of excellence program that then became Edison Health. You have Carum Health, Lantern Health, Transcarent, Zero Card, and Zero Health. There's a number of these different firms that are going out and that are trying to break through the massive conglomerate ownership and get good, reasonable pricing on different fixed fee surgical services. And so a lot of my large employers, like upwards of a fourth or a third of my jumbo employers, all supplement with one or more of these centers of excellence vendors in order to get access nationwide to good, low-cost fixed surgical services at high quality providers. And but what happens if you're smaller? If you can't access some of those, because a lot of those firms, you got to have a few thousand lives to be able to use those vendors. That's where you can find the local ASC in your town or neighboring towns or cities, and you can oftentimes you can call them up and get a direct contract with them. Say, hey, I'd like to, if I send my employees over to you, what kind of fixed pricing could you get me? Would you be willing to honor the posted pricing with your cowboy friends up in the Midwest or the Surgical Center of Oklahoma, down in the Southwest, et cetera, where there are published rates and see if they're willing to accept them all in on a bundled basis, a lot of times they're going to be open to that.
Yeah. So Lee, you talk about doing that. It's a challenge on the broker side. We and you have talked. You're trying to put something together where we can get it over, whether it be Virtual Health or in different TPAs, where we can get access to these programs on this larger scale once you prove and test them that they work. Talk to me about that. I know it's coming down the pike and you're working pretty hard on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So a number of friends and connections have said, hey, Lee, it's so cool what you're doing with, these large employers. Is there any way we could take some of those same strategies and bring them down to the mid-market? How can we get access to these? Because, if you're going to use Lantern, like Home Depot, that's their center of excellence network, of CVS, even for their own employees, the number of airlines, things like that. It's like, you got to have 100,000 lives to get access to that stuff. How do we bring that down market? And so I've been working with them for a while of saying, hey, what if we took some of these capabilities, we bundled them together and made them accessible through your TPA? The TPA, by aggregating everybody together, has enough lives to be worthwhile to these vendors that are working with 50,000 life groups, because your TPA might have 20, 30, 50, 100,000 lives. And so if we treat the TPA like a single employer, then we can take some of these same strategies and make them accessible. And so we started working on that. And to do it, you'd have to standardize the way data flows. You'd have to standardize the way billing works and automate everything, because you can't have 200 or 300 little separate invoices. But if you can standardize all that at the TPA level, we can take a dozen of these capabilities that are never going to get to the mid-market, make them available. Virtual Health has been a great partner in this, of saying, hey, look, you already connect with great TPAs that are connected into this, so that we can look at activating this everywhere Virtual Health has a footprint. We can activate some of these capabilities. So the supplemental networks, the ABC that we talked about, all of that's available. So you get 5,000 new providers of advanced primary care in all major cities all across the country. You get, in 300 different cities, you get the advanced ketamine clinics, psilocybin clinics in a couple of states, TMS and stellate ganglial block, and the other advanced acute behavioral health therapies that are not in network today with carriers. You get access to that. You get another 10,000 additional therapists all across the country that are not in network today with your carrier. You get access to that. And then you get access to the largest, most drivable center of excellence network in 500 cities with over 3,000 different services. You get access to that. And you get access to all the same networks and solutions that are available for the Fortune 100, Fortune 200. It doesn't cost you anything extra. You just pay for it as a claim if it gets used. And we've been able to standardize the pricing with the TPAs. So the TPA, it doesn't cost the TPA anything to offer it either. And if you're working with a TPA who doesn't have this, knock on their door, connect or email with me. We'd love to connect that into your local TPA. If they're willing to do it. Again, it doesn't cost them anything to be able to offer it, but it's a huge advantage for your employers. Additionally, on the clinical side, it's not just about the providers, it's also on clinical. There's a few areas where we want coverage, and I'll lightning around those real quick. One of them is about 2% of your population is inadvertently poisoning themselves with their pharmacy. They're taking 5 or 6 pills, 2 of them are mixing badly. Hopefully it's not lethal poisoning, but it can be low-grade poisoning or even just making them inert. Then you get a bunch of side effects and you get no positive benefit. The way we fix that is we have a team of pharmacists screen. They use software, but they screen every single patient every month. They see what drugs they're taking, and it flags in their software, here we've got a toxic mix. And then these pharmacists, if they find that, they get on the phone, they call your doctor, and they fix it. It's the dumbest thing ever. You bill through a $75 claim and it's done. Yeah. Second thing that I know it sounds so stupid. Like, how is this not already done? It's so simple, but it's not being done. And it could be a decade before small groups get access to that technology. Let's turn it on now. The second one is people who get discharged from the hospital. Many of them go home to a loving family, right? Or a partner or spouse. However, a bunch of them go home just to their cat, and there's nobody else to help them out, or their dog. And they might have a roommate who's occasionally around or whatever it might be. Those people are 8 to 10 times more likely of getting a bad infection and getting rushed back to the hospital in an ambulance. And when they do, starting bid on that care is $250,000. So what we do, this is so dumb, it's so simple, is we just call people after they get discharged from the hospital. We ask, who is there taking care of you? Did you get the medication that you're supposed to take? Are you taking it? And a lot of people say, there's nobody at home with me. I can't drive right now because I just got leg surgery and it hurts like crazy. And no, I didn't go over to the pharmacy to get the drugs. I'm just going to muscle through. It's like, oh my gosh. Okay, we're going to get it sent to your house and eat the pills. And I'm going to call, and then they just say, I'm going to call you every day and we're going to see what color the wound is. We may not stop them from having an infection. We're going to stop some of them. We may not stop them from having an infection. If that dog licks the wound, you're headed back to the hospital. But we want to send them back in an Uber, not an ambulance. And then the cost is $20,000, not $250,000. It's so simple. And that should be standard on every single person who's discharged. Unfortunately, it's not. It's just a big blind spot in healthcare. We're going to fix that. We're going to make sure that people who don't have fertility coverage, that they get referred into high-value fertility centers that don't do massive, aggressive multi-embryo therapy, but instead just do best practice therapy. And they're accelerating. Yeah, why? We're having kids later. And guess what? When you're getting pregnant in your 30s and 40s, super high-risk pregnancy. And the employer is like, nah, I'm not going to cover fertility, which is fine. But guess what you are covering? You're covering those triplets for $4 million. You're covering that. And your stop loss is going to reflect it. That's a huge problem. So we're not covering the fertility, but we are covering the results of it. And the problem is when you're paying cash for fertility, it's going to cost you 20, 30 grand. Not all fertility clinics are going to practice best practice. They might just say, okay, we're going to take cash. We're going to shotgun this thing. We're going to take every embryo. We're going to insert them. If you do IVF 5 times with multi-embryo therapy, 3 of the 5, you're going to get pregnant. But one of those 3 is going to be twins or more. And the average cost there starts at around $400,000 for super high-risk twins, and then forget triplets. And so that's 1 in 3 of the IVFs you didn't pay for is going to hand you back $400,000 triplets or twins, okay? Or, hear me out, you can direct somebody to a high-quality single embryo transfer. If you do it 5 times, guess how many times you get pregnant? The exact same amount, 3. Technically, it's 59% effective versus 60. So it's 1% difference in success rate, except mom is healthy, baby's healthy, and you only get twins about 1 in 20 times, not 1 in 3.
And these are specific facilities?
These are specific facilities. You just have to help people get to the right facilities. And the program we've got in place is designed for cash pay. It assumes, hey, your employer is not going to cover fertility. But you know what? That doesn't mean that you shouldn't be rolling dice on your future or your kid's future. Let's just get you to this center in your town, not that one. This one practices single embryo therapy. You get a 59 versus 60% success rate. It's the same. And they have a low cost cash rate. It's unbelievable. This is great. And so we can add that in place and give it to every employer who doesn't cover fertility, and we can still help people get to a great result. And encourage you to offer fertility coverage. It's not that big a deal. And you can do that as well if you want. Ask some of these questions that we talked about today. Talk to your advisor about whether or not your TPA has access to this. If they don't, see if you can find access. Reach out, obviously, to you, John Sbrocco, as a great resource.
Beautiful. Lee, thanks so much for joining us. Everybody, great episode here, Heads Up Advisor. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much for joining. Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.